Hey guys, it's Pete from Pete from Anxiety here. Welcome in today's episode. I appreciate y'all being here so much. Let's talk about a few things real quick. The Pete vs. Anxiety Team Anxiety Facebook group. Are you a part of it? You're not? What are you waiting for? The link's down here in the description down below, or go to Facebook and search Pete vs. Anxiety. Then look for the Team Anxiety team page and join it today. Why not? You can join and help. It'll be great. Yeah, like right now. Hurry up. Stop what you're doing. Pause this video. Go do it right now. But anyways, let's also talk about the Pete vs. Anxiety YouTube page. If you're here right now, you're probably following it most likely. If not, head on over there, subscribe, be sure to like and comment on the videos and let me know, because all that stuff really helps, guys. I really appreciate it. And help me break the stigma that mental health is talked about enough. But anyways, guys, let's get in today's episode. I'll have a great one. Thank you so much again. And as I always say, don't ask how your day is, ask how your mental health is today.
Guys, welcome to a special edition of Pete vs. Anxiety, the mental health podcast, breaking the stigma that mental health is talked about enough. My guest today is the host of the podcast, Everyone is Addicted, the one, the only, Jasmine, is it Bootle? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, you said it right, Bootle.
Hey, I got it. All right. Jasmine is here actually to share her own story. So let me let her take the floor. Jasmine, why don't you tell everybody about yourself?
Okay, so at this very given moment, I go to college full time for accounting. I'm a mom of 2 kids, and I have my a podcast about addiction. But that's me in the present. If you want, I can go all the way back to the beginning.
You go as you like. This is all about you, girl. Why don't you tell everybody more about yourself? Let them know why you're here today.
Okay,
I know. So let's tell them why.
All right, I have horrible anxiety, and I've had it since I was a child. Like, it has always felt like there's a hole in like my chest that's just like somebody's punching me in the chest constantly. And I've felt that way since I was little, because my mom would, if we went somewhere, when we'd get in the car, she would run through every little thing that I did or said that was incorrect in her opinion, right? So that started the anxiety really, really young. And then I got bullied in school really, really, really badly. Like, I was held down and beat up. I had garbage thrown at me. They would push me around. I was scared to use the bathroom, so I'd use the teacher's bathroom and get in trouble because I was afraid there were no cameras, so they could do some pretty bad things, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I got older, my parents separated and my mom took everything from my dad, so I stayed with my dad, which just elevated the anxiety because my dad didn't have anything. We went from being pretty like well off to being nothing. Like, I would look for change on the floor to buy chips in college because we had nothing. She took the car, everything. So I stayed with my dad, worked as a server, and like I said, that my anxiety just increased to an extreme level, right? Where I couldn't cope. But my father also at this time couldn't cope. So we both kind of turned to alcohol, right? And so then I also, because of the bullying, kind of developed agoraphobia. So I was afraid to leave the house because they'd yell things at me. And we lived in a small town, right? So if I left the house, somebody was going to yell something negative at me, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where the booze came in as well, because it would give me like the confidence to leave the house. So I started drinking a lot with my dad, and then he had congestive heart failure, and he quit drinking and smoking and everything else, right? But I didn't. So I'd go on benders, or I'd leave the house for days at a time because he didn't like me drinking around him. So I'm just going to put this on Do Not Disturb.
No,
I forgot to.
Real quick, guys. Agoraphobia is an anxiety disorder characterized by intense fear of situation or places where escape might be difficult or where help may not be available. If a panic attack or intense anxiety symptoms occur, commonly feared situations for her would be public transportation, open spaces, enclosed spaces, crowds, or standing in line. And these are just giving an idea a little bit of what she's referring to for people that don't know what that is. So Jasmine, you go ahead and continue. Sorry, I just wanted to cut that in there real quick while I could for everybody.
going back to that, so whenever I even to this day, if I have, like, say I work somewhere or I'm going to school somewhere, I will always find like a hiding place. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like, so I find places where nobody can see me or be around me, because I get such intense anxiety that I always find little hiding spots everywhere I go. And when I had to sell my childhood home after my dad passed away, it really, really messed me up, because that was like my sanctuary safety area. So leaving that was also very amplifying to the agoraphobia, because I had to adapt to a new place, and
Yeah.
for me that's a little difficult. I also, because of my anxiety, I pick at my skin. It's called aphasia. And so I'll pick at my skin to it's for a sense of feeling control in a situation where you're not in control, right?
Is it kind of like a nervous tick kind of thing too? Would you say?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And so, like, if yeah, so basically I won't do it to my face, because I know people will notice that much more.
Oh.
But
Okay. Okay.
if I do it to my legs, so I can't wear skirts or dresses or anything, because I have so many scars, right? But one time I was wearing a dress and I got a fender bender, and the police thought I was a drug addict because they seen my legs, and they
Oh
tried
God.
to charge me for being under the influence. But then when I did the drug test, they realized I actually wasn't under the influence. I really do have mental health issues, and they thought I was making it up, right? So that was something else that happened to me. But we'll go back. My dad was partying at the heart attack, and
Yeah.
then I worked in restaurants, right? So it's very easy for me to go out after work. So my drinking did continue. I just didn't do it at home.
Yeah.
And then so my crush from high school moved back to where our town was, and I met up with him, and we had a daughter. And right after we had our daughter, we found out that my father had prostate cancer, and his doctor hadn't been giving him prostate exams, and the tumor was the size of a grapefruit and had metastasized all over his body. But him being stubborn, he didn't quit working, and he worked in heating and cooling. And if you know anything about air conditioners, they have to suck on a nozzle sometimes to fix that. So he got septic shock because his immune system was so lowered, right? So he was in a coma for 3 months, and I lived at the ICU with him at nighttime because they weren't really paying attention to him. So the anxiety in my life elevated even more then, because there's families rushing in, there's people rushing out, there's obviously lots of deaths. It's the emergency, like, you know what I mean? It's the last step to passing. They're trying to save you, but can't save everybody. So you see a lot of that. There's something called a quiet room at the hospital, which is like the biggest anxiety room in the world, because that's where they tell you that your family member is probably not going to make it. He did come out of the coma. They told me to pull the plug a million times, and I refused because I'm stubborn like my father. And he came back for about 6 months, and then he did end up succumbing to cancer. And my aunt managed to manipulate him when he was not all there anymore at the end. And she got everything and had him sign his pension away to nobody. And that's hence why I had to sell my childhood home, because that is the only thing that I received, right? And that was really hard for me, because my dad didn't want me to sell the house. He also had stated he wanted me to get the pension to his lawyer, but he hadn't gotten the paperwork yet. So it was clearly my aunt doing some shady things. She's like that. When my other aunt died, she excommunicated my 2 cousins from the family, and I've been excommunicated from the family as well, right? So she just, I don't know, has her own problems, right? And I'm an only child, so like I was extremely close with my dad. So that was hard. I didn't even get to speak at his funeral. My daughter's father is drug addict. He was smoking crack the whole funeral, wanted me to pack up and leave early. So hence my anxiety is getting even worse and worse and worse at this time. But I don't really know what to do about it, right? So I had a friend, like my best friend, she was on an SSRI. And if anybody wants to know what that is, it is a mental health medications. There's so many different ones, right? So I go to my doctor and I ask about that. So I get on, I take Lyrica now, but I was on acetyl which just doesn't work with my body. So I take Lyrica to help with the anxiety.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so I'm still dealing with the anxiety. I'm dealing with the loss of my house. I'm dealing with getting rid of my daughter's father. He stole a bunch of money from me. I charged him. We had to go through court and stuff like that. At this point in time, he's homeless and he leaves us alone for the most part because he knows that he looks like a zombie, right? And it scares his daughter, so he stays away. But so for my journey, after my father passed and I had moved, I ended up getting addicted to opiates because I took a Percocet once when I was in pain, and I my anxiety so bad that took everything away, and it was such a numbing feeling that at that time I started to self-medicate in that way. And then somebody, like, so my spouse had 3 overdose / heart attacks in the period of 2 days. So they were at the ambulance at our hospital, or the ambulance at our house, like constantly, right? So I went to a methadone clinic, and that's where I was able to get off of opiates and onto the right type of mental health medication. So now my agoraphobia doesn't affect me nearly as much. I don't pick my skin nearly as much, and my anxiety isn't nearly as bad. Like I literally feel like I live a new life now mentally because I can function. I can go places. I can do things that I always wished I could do, right?
Yeah.
So I for anybody who is suffering mentally, express exactly what it is that's going on with you to a medical professional that's trained in that field, and I promise you, you will. There might be some trial and errors with the medications, but eventually you'll get to a place that you never thought you could get to. And that is why I say I have that success story aspect, right? Because I was able to learn coping mechanisms from, like, I know it's a methadone clinic, they treat addictions, but they also, which a lot of people don't know, treat mental health as well, right? So I go and I see my doctor, and it like gives me coping mechanisms and discusses like what is working, what is not working. But we're at a point now where it's more she and I just discuss coping mechanisms because we've gotten to the right level of things. But if something bad happens in my life, she's able to give me coping mechanisms to be able to handle it so that I don't, go nuts, or, because I'm a mom, I don't want to affect my children. And I know I have by having these panic attacks all the time, right? They know that I go in my room by myself when it happens. So they know, and I feel bad about that, right? Because they don't know what I'm doing in there. They just think, oh, mommy's sleeping. Mommy's not sleeping, but makes me feel kind of bad. Like I'm not present enough, So now that I've gotten to a better level, that's what I've really been focusing on, is trying to be a lot more present and using the coping mechanisms, because there's a lot of stuff in my life right now that's not going correctly.
Yeah.
But I've been through this before and I just have to ride it out. But because I'm on that medication and I have a good doctor, I can say that. Before, I would not have been able to say, "Oh, I'm going to ride it out and I can handle it. It will be what it'll be." Oh, no. I would have used some other form of coping to,
Yeah. No,
go
I get
do
you
something
completely.
bad, right? I wouldn't go back to using any substances because I have children and I don't
Yeah.
want them affected by it. But I might, like, you know, be really snappy, or like I said, not leave my room or have issues like that, right? And I
Yeah.
don't, that's my that's my step next to work on, right? But
Yeah.
that's where the podcast kind of comes in too, because I know so much about mental health. I also studied it in school
Oh,
because
okay. Okay.
I studied it in school because I wanted to understand myself, because I couldn't, right? And it was very, I just didn't know. And my mom would always tell me that I had ADHD, which is definitely not the case. So I
Yeah.
wanted to figure myself out. So I took a lot of psychology courses to realize and understand, but it's that clinical level. It's not, you don't really learn anything. Like, I find that somebody else that has an anxiety problem is better able to understand me when I'm talking to them
Yeah.
about anxiety than reading a textbook explaining to me what anxiety is, right? So
Yeah. No,
that did
Jasmine, that's a
help.
great point, though. By the way, when you say that, it's easier for someone that deals with it to understand it, because that's exactly what the whole point of the show is. Is at first that's what it was. It was, let's talk about these things and have other people that come on to have these things, and people can see, hey, this is what it looks like. Like, you could read in the textbooks all day, but it doesn't go follow the textbook. It shows up differently in everybody, and you understand that more than anybody.
Oh yeah, because like I know so many other people that have anxiety. Like a really good friend of mine, and the way that he has it is totally different than the way that I have it. Where
Yeah.
he's constantly worrying about his, like, if his phone rings, it gives him like a panic attack because he thinks something bad is going to happen, because he
Okay.
picked it, like, he thinks that there's something bad on the other end of the phone, right? Or
Yeah.
if somebody texts him, he thinks is going to be negative through his life experiences, right? So he feels it differently than I feel it. I feel it from having a lot of people constantly yelling at me and stuff, where
Yeah.
he has had a lot of incidences of, like, negative things like that with the phone, I suppose, like bad things happening to him. And so that's why he interprets it differently than I do. So
Yeah.
that's why, like, even my doctor, she experiences anxiety, and that's why she works so well with me, but she still feels it differently than I do as well, right? So
Yeah.
it's, everybody's different, everybody has their own story, their own feelings, everything, right? So
Yeah.
it's not a one size fits all for even trying to overcome it. Like I said, with medications and stuff like that. Like, my friend's on one, but I don't respond to that one in the same way, right?
Yeah.
So it's all just figuring it out almost. I feel like we're all just like fish in a pond, trying to figure out where we're supposed to go.
I love that. I love that, though. That's a great analogy to it, because that's really what we're trying to do, is figure out what works best for us. It also says that cognitive behavior therapy is another one for your phobia that you have. It also says that women are twice as likely as men to develop it as well too. How about that one? That's an interesting stat too. Because I
Mhm.
think you're the first person I've met that actually has it, or that I know that has it. So I may have met somebody else that might have had it to the extreme of yours, and I may have never even known it, but and it's great that you're here, because people can see what it's like. Hey, this is what Jasmine deals like. These are the things she deals with on a daily basis, but she doesn't let it affect it. You got the kids, you got the podcast, everything going the way you want it to go right now. So how old are the kids, by the way?
So my son is 5 and my daughter is 8. So they're little.
Okay, so my next question for you though is going to be: are you going to talk to them about mental health when they get old enough? Or are you going to start like kind of like let them know what it is you actually dealt with when they're old enough? Like, hey, listen, mom, this is what mommy dealt with, and just give them kind of like a little inside information so they better understand what they were seeing.
They already kind of know a little bit because when I do my podcast, they can hear the conversation.
Oh,
They
okay.
hide outside the door and they listen. So, and my daughter has to deal with her situation with her father, and his mother also experiences anxiety due to him.
Yeah.
So she's so empathetic. Like, there's a little girl yesterday that she's friends with that didn't have it's pizza day, and her parents didn't have enough money to give her pizza for pizza day. So they also gave away popcorn for $1. So she gave her dollar to her friend so her friend could have popcorn and not feel left out, because she knows some of my experience to the degree that I think she's able, like, I allow her to understand. That's like, because if I start crying, she'll make me like a spa and bring me stuffed animals and stuff. So that's why I try to contain it away from them, because I know she feels it. I know she's trying to help me, and I know that through that, though, she sees what it is and has a bit of an understanding of it. They really like that movie too, Inside Out, where explains it, and they watch it a lot. So they kind of relate it to me sometimes, right? But so when they get older, I will explain much more, but they do know, like, that I was bullied. They go to school, so they know what bullying is. So they know that I was bullied. They know that I sometimes can't handle my emotions and bubble up and become extremely overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But they don't exactly understand the feeling, because I can't really express it in words that they would understand yet, right? So I give them as much as they can understand at this time, right? But
I think that's awesome. And just so you know, kids as early as 4 can actually understand what's going on. They may not be able to tell you, but they do understand what's going on. So your 5-year-old, he knows a lot more than I think you realize, which is amazing though to think about it. That he's 5 years old, he sees all these things going on. So he already knows mom's having struggles, things like that. And your daughter already picked up on it, right? She already knows, which is really great because she's probably going to be an empath like me and a very other bunch of people are too. Because if she can pick up on that already at 8, there's sky's the limit for that young lady right there, because she sees mom's in trouble and come soothe mom and things like that. It's awesome when I hear that though, and I think it's great that you're going to have open dialogue with them about it, because I think if we start teaching them at a younger age, this conversation can be had faster. These younger guys can start being ready for when these things start to come up. They'll know, like, hey, listen, there's something not right about this situation, or I'm having a problem, or my friend's having an issue, which is just awesome. Because I think that we need to start having the conversation with them younger so they understand these things, and I know a lot of people are trying to teach kids young as 5 how to like regulate their emotions too, and things like that. So, it's not so bad for them when they start having emotions and things like that. They have better understanding how it works. So I've had a couple guests on this show so far. There's a few actually. One of them, he's actually doing something. He has a book called Just Breathe that basically it teaches kids like to just breathe. Like, listen, before you make
that's
a
my
decision.
son when he
So
has his.
there you go. See, so you're already using it. They say he had a book about that. And there's another gentleman that was on this show, and he gave us an oh shit moment during his interview. He actually had suicidal ideation. He's like, Pete, can I tell you something? He's like sitting there, Jasmine. He's just like, and I'm sure you've been in this seat before, being the interviewer on the other side. Like, he starts talking, and then all of a sudden, girl, he goes right into it. I'm like, holy crap, here we go, dude. Like, he started talking about, well, I'm sitting at the edge of the thing, and he's describing this situation to a T to us. Yeah, I'm sitting there. I'm teetering at the edge of the bed. I've got the item in
I
hand.
did them.
I was like, oh, holy crap. I was like, oh no, he's gonna do it. Like, I know. And he's like, he talks about it, but then he comes back to it and everything else like that and stuff like that. So it was an interesting moment since I've started this, from the beginning to where I'm now. I've had like a bunch of interesting conversations. And,
Mm-hmm.
we're on our way to number 100, which is this Monday. So your number 99 interview, by the way.
Ooh.
So you're part of something special, and it hasn't even been a year yet. I start the show in August. It was an idea. September we started recording actual episodes like this because we're actually on the Oracle Talk Radio Network, which is the podcasting network I'm a part of. I got offered to be a part of them in the beginning. Tom and another woman named by the name of Jenny DeCasio. She came. Tom came to me and he told me about Jenny. Jenny has a book and everything else. She's a well-published author and things like that. She has her own podcast with him, and she does a couple of her own, stuff like that too. And it's really great, because without them, I don't think I'd be this far into it as I am, man. I've met so many cool people here. And, I heard that you had the podcast. As soon as I heard you had the podcast, I was like, oh, shit, you got a podcast? All right, hold up, hang on. So I think it's great. So what inspired you to start your podcast? Was just your journeys of everything else that you're going through and stuff like that?
So I just started my podcast about 2.5 months ago. But it is doing quite well. I think it's because I did a lot of guest spots before I did it so that I could learn. But what sparked it was my daughter's father got pneumonia and was in the ICU again, somebody in the ICU, and wasn't supposed to make it. He did make it and left the hospital before he was supposed to. But that plus there is a huge opioid epidemic where I live, right? So people treat the homeless like they're absolutely disgusting. But I see it as they didn't ask to be homeless or be addicted. They didn't ask to be where they are. Some of them could be because a doctor wrote them a prescription. You don't know. And they get treated so badly that I wanted to do something to bring awareness and humanization to that, plus the fact that I watch my mother-in-law suffer so much that I wanted to give a platform for family because they suffer silently to be able to express themselves. And I bring on people that are clinically trained in that area as well. So it's kind of, and people who have recovered from addiction. So it's kind of about resources, understanding, giving people a voice and just full circle. Because if you don't know anything about addiction, it's so easy to judge, right? So I like to put a face to it. And even if it's a family member, that's still a face to it because they're going through it too, right? And also, if I have doctors and stuff come on that explain it in that way so that maybe people will be a little more empathetic and a little bit more understanding towards what it is. Because I feel like unless you've experienced it, you really don't understand. Same with anxiety. Do you know what I mean? If you haven't experienced it, you don't understand. And I just want people to understand. And like I said, it was sparked by just walking through where I live, and there's people. My daughter said hi to some people who were doing drugs, and there was the hospital thing going on, and I'm like, I really, really want to do something about this. And I was like, you know what? The best way to do it, to reach the most amount of people, would be to do it through a podcast, right? Yeah. So that's where that came from, basically. And a lot of people, when they come on, it's almost good for them to tell their story too. Like they feel like they've kind of released a little bit, it's almost like when you've been holding on to something for a while and you kind of write it down and you say it, you feel lighter.
Yeah, you feel more empowered because you're sharing your own story and things like that. Oh yeah, trust me, there's some stories I've heard on here that were just about as wild as the one I told you earlier, that just you didn't know. I do the same thing I do everybody, pre-screen, just like I did with you. Hey, listen, tell me a little about yourself. And then they get into these stories, girl, let me tell you, there's a few of them that they're just you're
even
holy crap, here we go.
even with the suicidal ideation, when you said that, I was like, you know what? That was a part of my story I forgot. So after my dad passed away, I had to get a DNC, which is a medical abortion, because I lost a child. So I was at that point of I didn't want to live anymore. So I got drunk because they have to put you under for this, right? So I couldn't pull the trigger on my own. So I got drunk knowing that if I was put under, because I am already because I understand how alcohol affects my body, I am already like a lower breathing standpoint. So if I'm put under, I will pass away.
Oh,
But the power went out when I was supposed to get this procedure done, and it takes 8 hours for the machine to come back up after the power comes on. So there was a divine intervention in that scenario, right? And that was another turning point for me, because I realized there's a reason. It was the same hospital that my dad passed away in and everything, right? So it's like, I don't know, something's trying to tell me something. So that's where I started to try to focus on how do I get my head right, because it's clearly not right, you know? And so like I said, I seen that counselor wasn't really the best counselor, but at least it was something at the time. And then I said, once I got to the methadone clinic, everything in my life changed. So anybody who's also afraid of that stigma, it's not just for people who are addicts. They have social workers in there. They have mental health counselors in there. They have resources for things if you need help with like food or clothes or home, like everything. And they help you fill out your paperwork too. So like if you're trying to go on what we call here Ontario Works, which is welfare, they will help you fill that paperwork out, right? And all that kind of stuff. So it's actually not what you think it is. And it's not a bunch of people that are completely messed up and all that kind of stuff. It's a completely different atmosphere than you'd expect. And that's why I really want to break the stigma on that aspect, because so many people don't want to be like, into the methadone clinic, you know.
Well, it's
So
awesome though. You got the podcast and everything too. You know, it's. I'm sure you've had some great interviews. It's only been 2 months. I mean, you're just getting started in a fun little game that we're in here. You know, different people you interview and things like that. I probably might have some guests for you too, which I love to share you. So I'll add you to my group of people. I have a circle of podcasters I already talk with, and I'm pretty sure after we're done with this interview, there'll be a few of them are getting some messages like, "Hey, listen, I got somebody for you to check out. What do you think about this person?" And trust me, I'm sure we'll get you some more. I do have a few, like I said, a few friends that I'm very close with that have some other ones. There's a few of them, like one called Emotionally Unavailable. She's actually gonna be the guest this Monday. You'll love her, trust me. You get in the conversation with this woman, you're gonna start laughing because she's a licensed therapist herself, but the way she does therapy is nothing like you've ever done before. Like she is so cool. Melissa's really great. She's a really good host. There's a few others too. I know there's another guy. He does an addiction podcast too. I'll have to reach out and see what he's up to, and see about just getting you out there even more. Like I love to spread and to help other people raise awareness for things like that, especially when it comes to business.
thank you, because I do the same thing with my guys. I like, if you've got a book or podcast, talk about it. I don't mind, because it's the same thing. I think we all help each other, then it's like, I don't know, we all get something out of it. Do you know what I mean? So it's
No,
not.
definitely, because it's a community, and people don't realize it's a community for us all. And things like that. And it's great. I do guest spots too. I did a few actually interesting ones. I've done Humanity 2.0, which is really nice. I actually interviewed the host of the show when she was starting the project. She was talking to me about it and things like that. So I'll definitely reach out to her and see what she's up to.
I appreciate that.
There's a bunch of other ones too I've got for you. There's like I Need a Friend is one I'm going to be doing here in 2 weeks. And some other ones. And like I said, we'll keep in touch, obviously, just because, we can share guests and different things like that. And
Yeah, because I have some for you too.
I'm sure. Oh, and I've got a lot coming in. So, but I take your request over other people, just so you know. So, like when somebody suggests somebody to me, I usually go for them first over anybody else, because I know I can know what I'm getting from that person. So trust me, when you send me a message, I reach out to those people directly first. And it's not to say nobody else matters as much, but it's like I know I can trust,
what
the other
somebody
people.
says.
You know what I'm saying? I could trust your reference
Yeah.
versus, just
Well,
some
I
other
can
person.
even when I recommend people, I'll send their interview alongside with who they are so
I
that
love
you
it.
can kind of see for yourself as your own like pre-vetting, you know what I mean, before you decide if you want to talk to them or not, right?
Yeah, no, trust me. Yeah, I get that completely, and that's great too because then you can see how the interview conducts and things like that. And I tell people before they come on the show a lot of times just to check them out and see because everybody's like, "Well, what if we don't click?" I'm like, "We click just fine. Trust me. I can hold most conversations. Most people don't
Yeah.
realize,
I'm the
So,
same way.
but
I can talk
it's
to
great though,
anyone.
right? And it's a great thing about podcasting, man. You get to meet so many cool people. I've had like, God, I don't even know, man. I've had musicians on here. I've had
I
authors on
just
here.
did a this is a good one was I talked to some I did an interview yesterday and he was a comedian, right? So I mean we're talking about addiction, but I mean it was a lot more fun to talk with him because it was lighter. You know what I mean? Like we obviously are still talking about a really serious subject,
Yeah,
but it's a little lighter than some people, right?
yeah.
That are very emotionally still affected, I guess you could say, or he wasn't. So it was
What's his name, by the way?
Dees Casellas.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say because I know a guy that does his, but he uses humor to talk about his own mental health issues. Named Dave Morey. He was on the show too, and that's the way Dave was teaching other people with mental health issues how to handle their own, handle everything on their own and stuff. And me and Dave were laughing through this interview too. We're laughing, not to make light of anything, but it was just the way he coped
Mm-hmm.
with things and things like that, because he was teaching other people how to laugh at their own selves, and things like that through comedy and being on stage and stuff like that, and Dave was an interesting person to talk to too, because like he had just an interesting perspective on how things work and stuff like that too for his own sake, and I thought it was really great, honestly, and he was when I got him, I was like, hell yeah, because I love comedy. So comedy's one of the big things I listen to all the time. So he was telling us jokes the whole time, and he's telling these like suicide jokes and things. I'm just like,
Yeah, that's what Dees was doing.
what I'm saying? Like they're making jokes about these things, and
Yeah.
it's just like, ugh. I was like, I love it. It's great. It's like you're laughing, but other people that don't get it would probably
I
start
put a
cringing.
disclaimer on my podcast so that I'm able to say whatever people want to say so
Yeah.
that it can go there. I
Depending on what
actually
the subject is, I'll put the disclaimer too. It just depends. If I know this conversation is going to get real gritty, I'll literally tell them, "Hey, listen, trigger warning before we start this conversation. This is going to get really bad. This may trigger some people, things like that." You give them that full disclaimer, like, "Hey, heads up.
mhm.
I want you to know before you start watching this," because me and another guest that we're talking about narcissistic exes, we were talking. People only made it through halfway through the interview watching it. They had to turn it off and take a break because it was hitting people so hard at home. And it's
Oh
like
yeah.
all we were doing was just comparing notes to each other, what happened. And I've had a couple. I had one author. She literally couldn't have the camera on because her situation was so bad. But she wrote a book about her ex and everything like that too. And she said it was that bad. She literally could not have her own picture on the camera, which I thought was, to me, I was like, I'm more fascinated than ever. What happened in this situation? And when we were talking, a lot of our stuff started lining up really close. And I was like, whoa, this is really crazy.
I had an ex that had PTSD from being in Afghanistan,
Oh
and
shit.
he used to tell me where he was going to chop me up. He'd be like, "I'm going to chop you up here and here and here and here, and
Oh yeah,
nobody's
yeah.
ever going to find your body." And like, yeah, so you want to
Jesus,
talk
bro.
crazy exes?
Wow. Jeez, Jasmine. Damn. So when he told you that, was he just himself, or did he go into that moment where he just didn't realize where he was and what he was talking about?
His eyes would kind of go black. So I
Yeah,
think that he was kind of outside of himself. And because I understand mental health, I stayed with him for far longer than I should have
yeah.
because I understand from going through it myself. So I would always try to be empathetic towards it. But like, you can only take so much of that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially when it comes to PTSD, when they go into that moment, it's like they're not themselves anymore. They're like a zombie almost. Like
Hmm.
you see the person there, they're going basically almost into fight or flight mode for a lot of them. And it depends, because I had a similar situation where it happened and I had to like fight the person off because they just went completely berserk because,
Yeah.
and they don't remember the conversation after you talked to them about it and everything. They finally mellowed down, everything's good. They were like, I don't even remember this whole thing even happening. And I was like, oh, what? I'm like, dude, what the hell, man? And that was my first experience with PTSD. Like, I've seen some of it, and I've read about it. Like you said, you can read in books all day, but when you're seeing it in front of you, it's a whole other story, man. Like, it was the
Mhm.
craziest thing ever. I was fighting this person off. Like, it was a fight it was me
Yeah.
or them kind of fight. You know what I mean? And it was intense because it was like something I've never dealt with, but at the same time, it was something to see for me, and I learned another thing that day, but it was like, they're not even there anymore. Once they check out, man. And they
He was
don't
like
realize what's happening.
one time he was like yelling at me in my face as if I was like a private because he was a sergeant. So he's pushing me and yelling at me in my face. And then I smack him. And then all of a sudden, you assaulted me. You assaulted me. He didn't even remember that he was screaming in my face. He's like,
Yeah.
that didn't happen. I'm like, yes, it did. That's why I smacked you.
Yeah, and it's a crazy thing too. I think that's the scary part about it, is that they don't remember the whole situation. And some people that deal with
They
that
don't want
a lot,
help.
they definitely do. They check out on you, man, and they go into that whole nother state of mind. They have no idea what's going on. They're whatever they're visualizing at that time, we don't know on their end unless they're telling you or describing something to you. And I know
Mhm.
different things trigger different people for certain things. So,
He'd show
it,
me video like of them from the war that he had, and it was intense. So I mean, being 18-year-old and going through this and then coming back and now being like 27, and you don't even believe in what you did. Like, he didn't believe in the war anymore, right? Like what they were fighting for and stuff. So it was just a mind like scramble for him, right? And like,
yeah.
and to see these videos, I'm like, holy crap. And the stories he would tell, you're like, how did you do that at 18 years old? And how, like, but they don't want help because they don't want that stigma because like
Yeah.
they're a veteran, right? So right away, everybody's going to be like, you have PTSD. So he still to this day will not admit that he has PTSD.
So,
Will not admit it.
really scary fact for you, Jasmine. I interviewed a gentleman that was 22 years into the Marines. He told me that when he came back from overseas, they did a mental health check on him, but they told him that he was fine. And he said to him, "Did you check the results before, or did you look at my after results?" The scary answer was, "Oh no, we checked the ones that you went over with. So then you're not doing anything by checking it when I came back. You're not looking at it." He's like, "Because I'm dealing with these problems." And mind you, this is hard for him to go to the store and get milk and come back. Is mentally and physically draining for this poor gentleman, and things like that. And the scary part is he's like, "I told you something is wrong here, and you didn't look at the results." This being a guy 22 years, had went through a Humvee explosion and things like that. The whole thing got flipped over. All this crazy. There's a whole crazy
Mm-hmm.
story that goes with it. I'll have to send it to you. It's one of the first interviews I ever did on the show. He was actually my first guest. His wife was shopping around his story for him to come on and tell people about it. But you could tell this poor guy was going through it really bad. And he got really emotionally upset during when he was talking. I was just letting him go because I'm like, I want people to see what this is like. Like, you need to
Yeah.
understand how serious this guy is dealing with these things. Like, he can't do everyday life because of these things. And he had traumatic brain injury and all this other kind of stuff. And it was so interesting to find out the story he was telling us is that, hey, listen, I told them there's a problem. They told me I'm okay. And he's like, did you look at the real story, or did you look at what you wanted to see versus what reality was? And it was that we looked at this, not that. So,
Well, they don't even like my first boyfriend in high school, he had been hit by a drunk driver, and he had catastrophic brain damage. So he
yeah,
lived in this facility where they studied his brain for a year. And could they tell him anything about it? No. He still had to suffer all of these mental health issues. He eventually, he's not with us anymore, but he suffered so bad. Like, and it
yeah.
was just because they couldn't they want to help, but they don't know how in some of these situations, and just like what you said with that guy, they don't know how. They overlooked something so important.
Yeah, exactly. So, Jasmine, we're gonna start wrapping up. I know you got to go somewhere, so go ahead. Let's go ahead and start plugging your socials and your podcast, everything like that. Tell everybody where they can find you, and let them know how many times you drop it, what days you drop. Give them all that info, girl. Let them know where to find you at.
All right, so I'm on YouTube. Everyone is addicted. I put out episodes on Mondays and Fridays. I also do a holistic healing live on Wednesdays at 9 a.m.
Okay.
with co-host Chai. And I'm also on Facebook under Jasmine Bootle. You can PM me that way. My email is jasminebootle23 at hotmail or at gmail.com. Oops. So my email or Facebook are the easiest way to get a hold of me. But yeah, my podcast is Everyone is Addicted on Spotify and on YouTube.
Hey, there you go, guys. Go check her out. I'll put all the links in the bio down below. I'll make sure we got everything for you, her. That way you can tag her in there and everything else, guys. And if you want to be on the show, reach out to her. I'm sure Jasmine's looking for new people all the time. You want to come share your stories, things like that. That's what she's here for. She's here to raise awareness just like I am, guys. And I'm Pete versus Anxiety. I'm on pretty much everything. X down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify, all the way down to iHeartRadio, guys. And as I say, it costs nothing, absolutely nothing to be kind to somebody. One kind act you could do could save somebody's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete versus Anxiety, saying, hey, don't ask how your day is. Say, hey, how's your mental health today?